immigration and refugees. Because with the surge of Afghani refugees who are going to be coming to our country, at least to some degree, there are going to be some, you are going to see the America First types. You are going to see the blood and soil types. You're going to see the immigrants are bad and they won't assimilate types speak up and be very, very fucking annoying. The NIMBY types. Yeah, but NIMBY on a national level. That's what you're going to see. And we're going to see this all over the place. And I want you to understand that they're full of shit, okay? Anti-immigration people have always been full of shit. They are still full of shit to this day. They will continue to be full of shit. Let me tell you something. America, the United States of America, right? Okay? A lot of people like to talk about borders and go, oh, well, how will things go without borders? You want to notice something very, very interesting? When was the last time you had to go through a border checkpoint from one state to the other? Ooh, interesting. Uh-oh. If you live in America or in Canada, between province to province, when was the last time you had to go through a border checkpoint between those states? You know, states have very different laws, and in the United States, states have very different cultures. Are you kidding me? The culture difference between Alabama and California is unbelievable. The culture difference in Texas to Maine is unbelievable. Miami to Dallas, these are huge cultural differences. Sometimes even language differences in some cases. New York and Maine aren't even the same planet. I know firsthand. Okay? And guess what? We're all fine, aren't we? Oh, that's right. There's no real borders between the states. No actual political borders. I mean, there's political borders between the states, so we know which state starts where for various reasons. But there's no functional hard borders, is there? Weird how that works. Almost like people actually do a really good job moving from place to place. Humans have done this for all of their history. People move from place to place. They work out their little individual differences. And we don't actually have to have landmines and razor wire to be able to actually maintain a functioning world. Isn't that very strange? Big Blungus Gamer with the Prime sub. Thank you so much. If you're here and you have a Prime subs are free. But they make me money. And that means a lot to me because then I can eat food and upgrade things for my stream and buy video games to give away to you all. Thank you. Welcome, new imp. Okay, so let's continue, okay? Anti-immigration is the talk of the town right now. And you'll notice that a lot of the far-right groups have begun jumping back on the immigration train. They're now saying that there's a border crisis that Biden is overseeing, that there's like, and they often say it literally like this. You know, they say things like there are hordes at the gates, pounding at the gates, which is absurd to even think about. Our border is so long, it's not even, most of us can't even get it in our mind. People think that our border is like a fence that's like this big, that like you could see the border. The border is so big, it goes across multiple state lines. It's actually absurd. Yeah, there is one crisis at the border. It's ICE detainment facilities of innocent people. Yeah, the dehumanization is intentional. Don't ever think it isn't. Don't ever think that isn't intentional. Anti-immigration sentiment is fundamentally racist. It always is. It's fundamentally prejudiced. It is on its very face. And they might disguise it in different terms. They might say they're worried about the economy, or they're worried about American culture, or they're worried about this, or that, or the other thing. But it's always just racism in the end. And it's very funny Because did you know that the border to Canada used to be essentially nothing? That you could walk across the border to Canada and nobody would give a shit? When I was a kid, I went to Canada and I didn't even have to have an ID or a passport. They were just like, "Why are you coming to Canada?" And I said, "We're going to look at a boat." And then they said, "All right, come on through." And that was it. That was all there was. You could just go. You could literally, if you wanted to go to lunch across the border, you could just go there. You could just go, "Hey, yeah, I'm going to go get lunch in Canada," if you lived near there. It was that easy. Not anymore. So we all pay the price for this paranoia, much like what I just talked about the construction of an American panopticon, about the construction of constructs that make you live in fear so that you think that you have to say yes to everything the government tells you. Yes, most of human civilization was societies existing with porous borders. Borders are a modern invention that allows for the consolidation of empire. That's what the purpose of these violent, militarized borders does. It's not because it's going to harm the economy. It's not because it's going to do. It's because it threatens the power of the state. That's why. That is what borders exist to do. A border exists to say, this is where we can tell you you can't come. It is a power play. It is not about functionally keeping people safe. It is not about keeping the economy functioning. It's not about culture. It's about ideology. It is about a state asserting its right to kill you if you come to the place that they say is theirs. It is about instilling fear of the other, because fear of the other means that you will turn to the strong man that's nearby, the state. Right now in America, we enjoy the constitutional right of freedom of movement. You are not allowed to be restricted from moving from one state to another. States can't pass laws that restrict your ability to go from state to state unless you're a fugitive from the law, and that's a different discussion. We're not going to talk about that right now. That would open up a whole other can of worms. We'll just put that one on. Let's pretend that doesn't exist, okay? Let's just pretend that doesn't exist. Yeah, in America, if I decide I want to go see family in Utah, I can go see family in Utah. If I want to go see friends in California, I can, as long as I got the money, of course. That's another conversation we're not going to have right now. But as long as you have money, I can go down there and do that. There is not even a single border. You cross a state line and there might be a toll booth if that state has toll highways. That's about it. No security checkpoints, no searches, no nothing. And we recognize, it's funny, you can call the bluff because we recognize there's great value in this, right? Why do we have rules that allow for freedom of motion? Because it's good. Because being able to allow people to move freely is good. If there's a disaster, people can easily move elsewhere and pick up their lives and rebuild again. They can easily go see their family members. It encourages people to travel, to see the world that we have on offer. So this anti-immigration sentiment is another great example of fear costing us our own liberty. We have given up because we're afraid, because right-wingers are able to sell you fear of the other. They're able to sell you fear of the Mexicans, of the South Americans, of the Muslims coming in. Because they're afraid of that, they sell you the idea that you should be afraid too. And you being afraid makes you give up a serious fundamental liberty. Humans should be able to explore the world freely. Humans should be able to see everything that this fucking planet has to offer peacefully. But we can't. And we all pay that price collectively for living in a world in which it's accepted that armed borders where they can kill you if you come too close are an okay thing. And keep in mind, it's not just It's not just like a you know, like a Skyrim bandit fortress kind of thing, which can happen. You know, sometimes you get a fucked up local warlord who takes over and makes a place unsafe. That's like this big, that's like one city or one small region. We're talking about a whole world, a world that is fucking split by landmines and concrete and fucking razor wire and guns and snipers and drones. We all pay the price for subscribing to a world that asserts that this is necessary, but it's fucking not. Yeah, you wanna know what? Let's listen to Pale Blue Dot. That's a fucking great one. Oh my God, Jessica Metal, let's listen to Pale Blue Dot. This is so good. All right, everybody, we're gonna listen to a little speech real quick. A very important speech, okay? This is such a fucking good speech. Here we go. Enjoy. We're gonna listen together. Just listen for a minute.
That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors, so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit? Yes. Settle? Not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known.
That's the Pale Blue Dot speech. And I want to point out how unequivocally true every single thing said there is. This is our stand. We are not leaving this planet. Not anytime soon. Not anytime in even the foreseeable future. There isn't even a future that we can conceive of where we're able to leave this planet. We have to figure it out together on this planet now. That is all that we can do. The idea that we're going to flee to Mars or that we're going to colonize space is a fantasy. Even one of the most accomplished thinkers that in science that America can think of, Carl Sagan, universally beloved by everyone except for Christians, of course. Christians don't like Carl Sagan. But even a lot of Christians like Carl Sagan, to be completely honest. And yet, despite that fact, we are constantly sold the idea that no, we don't need to do that. Just keep doing things exactly like we have, even though it's causing us even though we're destroying our planet, even though we are killing one another, blowing one another up, even though we keep justifying these nation-based wars, these borders that tear us to shreds. Keep doing it, because if you do this, then Elon Musk will deliver you to Mars. But he won't. He can't. Even if every resource on the planet was directed to Elon Musk, it wouldn't happen. We don't have the technology. We don't have the ability. It's not possible. And that's not to say that it's not possible someday, but it will never be possible as long as the planet exists as it does now. So we cannot get lost in pipe dreams. We cannot get lost in fantasies. We cannot have a politics that is built around an untenable fantasy. You understand that, right? That our only option, our last stand, is together on a pale blue dot, suspended in a sunbeam. And this is what I talked about with the... some of you may remember when I talked about my position on nuclear disarmament. Anybody? Maybe that was a long time ago. I was a much smaller channel then. I've grown a lot since those days. But my opinion is still the same. My opinion is still the same, which is that we have to realize the only way that we will have peace on this planet is if all humans recognize that we have a mutual interest in not maintaining nuclear armaments. Likewise, I genuinely believe that we need humans as a whole to realize that this capitalism thing, this empire thing, this process of building these giant hyper-hierarchical empires is not the answer. That until we challenge that, until we imagine new ways of being, new ways of living, that we will never, ever live a better life. We will continue relinking the fire like it's Dark Souls, hollowing ourselves out over and over again, generation after generation. For what? Because we bought into some like Elon Musk sales vision of a luxury Mars hotel that can't exist, that we literally don't even have the technology for? No. We need to stop taking these grifters at their word. We need to stop believing that there is some external solution, that some genius will come and invent an invention that will make it possible for us to just fix all the problems in the blink of an eye. No, we fix the problems ourselves. We do it. We take care of each other. We think about one another. We share information. We autonomously work together with mutual aid in our minds. And then we actually have a shot. There is a potential future in which humanity reaches the stars. But let me ask you this. How will humanity have the power and energy necessary to ever reach another planet if we can't even use everything efficiently on this planet? We can't. We're doing it horribly. Our planet is just riven with inequality. It is riven with suffering. It is riven with war. We just spent all day today talking about how this cycle of war destitutes all of us. It makes all of us worse off. It destroys areas of the planet that can no longer be inhabited. It kills, it permanently removes from us people who we could thrive together with. It removes beauty. And until we realize, until we have a philosophical change in the way that we look at the world, until we challenge ourselves to think about the world differently, we will be caught in this cycle. You understand? We will be trapped in that cycle until we start to think about different ways of doing things. And I mean that on a structural level. We have to change the way we all interact with the world. We have to teach each other better ways to interact in the world. We have to collaborate with each other, teach each other together, discover together. We have to defeat fear. It's not just about being friends. Listen, conflict happens. Humans will always conflict. Conflict comes natural to us, but conflict doesn't have to be lethal. Conflict doesn't have to be between imperial entities vying for control of the planet. It doesn't have to be that way. Conflict can be something that's sorted out, that is negotiated. You do realize that we've been able to do this in the past, right? That there have been countless peaceful organizations that have come together and figured out solutions that are mutually beneficial. Well, Jessica Metal, conflict resolution is a seriously lacking skill in this day and age because resolution is a lacking feature in this day and age. We've destroyed our own social fabric. We have. By fixating on this idea of like suburban fortresses that are ruled by a suburban king. The father of every house is the king of his own little castle. That mentality has isolated us from one another. It has led to us to making remarkably stupid decisions. It's greed. We can have a better way. We can live better lives without chasing into systems of exploitation. It is. It's greed and it's pride. It's greed and it's pride and it's ideology. And we have to recognize this. Having positive social interaction is based on not being desperate. As more people struggle, it's harder to relax. It is, but we can also, hold on, but we have this cool thing, okay? We have a really fascinating thing, okay? Which is we have the ability to self-reflect. We have the ability to analyze our own emotions, our own fears, and we can acknowledge that desperation is induced in many cases. That desperation is induced by the structures that are around us. And if those structures are hurting us, then we should disassemble them. We should build from the fucking ground up new systems that serve us better. We should change the way we're doing things now. People are, listen. Is anyone familiar with gaslighting? Anybody? I think some of us are familiar with the concept of gaslighting, okay? Gaslighting is a thing that can happen on an interpersonal level, okay? It's basically when an abusive partner will lie or misrepresent like obvious facts. Like, for example, in the original version, it was somebody turning a light on and off. And it was making and then denying that it was going on and off. The light was flickering, and the abuser was saying it's not flickering. It's not flickering, even though the other person, the subject, the victim of the abuse, is seeing it with their own eyes. They're being denied it. What this causes is fear and confusion, and fear and confusion leaves you open for exploitation. So the abuser can maintain power. There's a similar cycle that goes on with our relationship to state structures, okay? To imperial state structures. There is a constant undermining of our safety, because guess what? If you're scared, remember what I said about the borders? If you're scared of the people outside, you will rely on the big, strong protector inside. They make you mistrust your own observations about reality. I think part of the problem is with the unilateral disarmament. For what you're suggesting to work, most people need to be on the same page. There's a strategic advantage to betraying the goodwill of everyone. Yes, there is, and that's why we have to challenge it. How do you prevent a single source from maintaining all the power? Well, there are many solutions on that. I have many suggestions. There's this book I've been talking about lately called Desert. Good book. that talks about how some of the ways that this can be accomplished. How we can start to think differently in ways that will, it's right there. It's linked right in chat. If anybody's interested, it's a very short read. It's a nice little pamphlet that talks about some of this stuff with regard to climate change. We have convinced ourselves over the last few years. You ever heard of the what's the term? Is it called the end of history? Yeah, The End of History and the Last Man by Francis Fukuyama. This book right here, printed in 1992, has shaped so many people's view of the world. The idea that we've sort of reached this is the end point of mankind's ideological evolution, and the universalization of Western liberal democracy is the final form of human government. This right here is a book that is stuck in the minds of so many people. It was an insanely popular book. Events still occur at the end of history. Pessimism about humanity's future is warranted because of humanity's inability to control technology. End of history means liberal democracy is the final form of government. I disagree. But this ideology has sort of infested the minds of so many people. And one of the earliest debates I was ever involved in on this platform was specifically about how people lack political imagination. We've become so scared that we refuse to imagine other types of living that we could live well in. Every era believes they're the last one, and guess what? There's a quote that I like to bring up here. Hold on, let me get the quote for you. Here's the quote. It's a quote from Ursula K. Le Guin, an amazing sci-fi writer and thinker. Okay, ready? We live in capitalism. Its power seems inescapable. So did the divine right of kings. Any human power can be resisted and changed by human beings. Resistance and change often begin in art, very often in our own art, the art of words. Okay? That is true. I do believe there is great power to be had in changing minds, effectively changing minds. I don't mean just going and debating or anything like that. Okay? If you can put yourself in the shoes of a medieval peasant who has never heard of any other type of the way of the world living, for all you know, all of history has been kings and queens. It would be very hard and perhaps scary for you to imagine a different or better way to be. But that is exactly what is required of us right now. It is absolutely required of us to imagine different ways of living life that might be good, because change is coming. The world is changing rapidly around us. And if we don't put our mind into it, we will be completely blindsided by the changes. And we could fall right back into the same mistakes that we did for another cycle of pain. But if we start to think, if we think outside of the paradigm, if we think ahead, if we challenge the things that we've been told to take as fact, and we find the truth, whether there is truth in them or whether they are a lie. Some things that we have been told are true. Some things we won't. Do you think we will be able to repair the earth after it becomes a desert? The earth will repair itself, but we have to stop the desertification process. That is what we have to do. We have to find a way to break the cycles that are destroying the planet. But no single one of us can fix the planet. There is no single solution to fixing climate change. Climate change is coming. There is no stopping it. It is here. No matter what we do, even if we were to do tomorrow, even if we were to begin all of the suggestions of the UN, we would still have climate change. Humans have to learn to live with the earth without killing ourselves. Is climate change going to render us extinct? No. Humans will probably never go extinct. Maybe if we completely destroy it, but no. What is more likely to happen is that humans will unintentionally kill a lot of themselves, and then the earth will continue its silent cycle that it always has for all of time. You do realize humans are quite fresh on this planet, right? Like, we've only been around a little while. We've done a lot of shit in the time that we've been around, but we haven't been around that long. Humans won't go extinct. All humans won't die. Like, I don't believe that's the case. Like, there will always be somewhere, I think, that humans can go, unless we literally nuke our planet into becoming Venus. The problem is that a lot of us will die. A lot of generations will die if we don't do anything about this. And that is it is not, once again, I tell you, it's not fucking worth it. It's not fucking worth it for us to have 900 SUVs of the same type. It's not worth it for us to have a nation made of parking lots if at the end there's only a million of us or 100 million of us left. Yeah, it's more likely to be a civilization ender, not extinction. Yes, we're talking billions, but we don't have to do that. That is not the only path. It is not the only path, okay? We can think bigger. We can think better. I've been talking about this a lot, and I will continue to talk about that. And to tie this back to what we're talking about in this particular segment, we have to challenge the idea that we should be afraid of every other human on this planet. Are there bad people? Yes. There will always be bad people. There will always be dangers that are legitimate. But the idea of a generalized fear of other humans who look different or who have a different culture, the idea that we should fear cultural difference, that we should seek assimilation constantly is so wrong. It's so wrong. It's so disgusting. And it puts us on a path to self-destruction. We have to embrace our differences. We have to embrace communicating, trying to understand one another. We have to embrace disassembling empire, disassembling these violent borders, disassembling these structures that literally keep us imprisoned. We have to find ways to resist being imprisoned in our own little nation states. That's the only way forward for any of this. It doesn't change if we don't change the system. You understand? Humans, we are all in these giant systems that are bigger than us. If we don't find ways to challenge that, to get people to think about it, to stimulate critical thought towards these structures, we will never escape it. And there are small practical things that you can do. Things like unequivocally supporting the U.S. bringing in Afghan refugees. Unequivocally supporting the most radical border reform and border abolishment that you can possibly support. We have to push hard for these things. We have to push for these things solidly. We have to be invested in them, interested in them. We have to understand and start to ask, how can we actually make change? And when you start asking those questions, you start finding the answers. You look, you research, you observe, you critique, and you move forward. But the way we start today is by challenging the idea that we should be afraid of people from Afghanistan, that we should be afraid of people from Mexico, that we should be afraid of people from anywhere on the planet, that we should be afraid of Muslims, that we should be afraid of trans people. You have to challenge this idea that we should be afraid of every other human. You want to be afraid of a murderer? Sure. You want to be afraid of an armed military? Go for it. Absolutely.